You know that feeling when a coincidence happens that's just so perfect, so on the nose, that it kind of stops you in your tracks? Well, today, we're going to explore this wild idea that synchronicity isn't just something that randomly happens to us. What if it's a skill you can actually learn, a language you can speak? What if you can start having your very own conversation with reality? Okay, let's get into it. So, to even begin to get our heads around this, we kind of have to embrace a little bit of wonder. I love this quote from the biologist J.B.S. Haldane. It's a great reminder that the world might just operate on principles that are way stranger and more connected than we usually think. It really sets the perfect stage for looking at everything with a fresh pair of eyes. Come on, I'm sure at least one of these has happened to you, right? That eerie feeling when you're thinking about an old friend and bam, your phone lights up with their name. Or maybe you're seeing the same numbers everywhere, over and over again. These are those little moments, those little glitches in the matrix that kind of make you go, And that is the big question we're diving into today. What if we just flip the whole script? Instead of writing these moments off as just random noise, what if we started seeing them as signals, as a reply? What if we're not just watching the movie of our lives, but we're actually helping to write the script? Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to talk about that gut feeling that it's not random. Then, we'll get practical. We'll go through the stages. First, how to even notice the signs. Then, how to figure out what they mean. And finally, the really cool part, how to go from just reacting to actually co-creating with reality. All right, let's get into our first section. We're starting right there with that specific feeling. You know the one. It's that moment when a coincidence seems so perfectly designed for you, for what you were just thinking or struggling with, that to just say, oh, what a coincidence, almost feels like you're lying to yourself. And yeah, the logical part of your brain immediately jumps in, right? It wants to label it confirmation bias, pattern recognition. And hey, sometimes it is. But there's often this deeper gut feeling, an intuition that tells you, no, this one was different. The point of all this isn't to throw logic out the window, but to learn how to also tune into that other frequency, that other channel of information. Okay, so if we're going to start listening, where do we even begin? Well, that brings us to the first practical stage, noticing. Seriously, think of it like learning a new language. You can't have a deep conversation on day one. First, you just have to learn to recognize the sounds, the basic words. Right now, we're just learning to hear reality's voice. And this is super helpful because it breaks down the different words reality might be using to talk to you. You've got symbolic ones, like seeing butterflies everywhere right when you're going through a big change. Then there are encounters, the right person literally walking into your life at the exact right time. And finally, circumstantial, when events, like missing your bus, just magically rearrange themselves for your benefit. So here's your first piece of homework, if you're up for it. For just 1 week, your only job is to be a detective, a data collector. Every morning, just say to yourself, okay, I'm open to seeing what's out there. Then, throughout the day, jot down anything that feels a little weird, a little too coincidental. And the key thing here, this is really important, is don't try to figure out what it means. Not yet. Just notice. You're just trying to tune the radio away from the static. All right, so you've spent some time just collecting these weird little moments. You're starting to notice things you never saw before. So what's next? Well, we move to the next stage, interpretation. Now that we can actually hear the signals, what in the world are they trying to say? This is where we learn to be translators. And this right here, this is probably the trickiest part, isn't it? Telling the difference between a real message from the universe and just our own wishful thinking. Here's a huge clue. Genuine guidance often pushes you to grow, even if it's uncomfortable. It usually shows up when you're calm, not when you're desperately looking for an answer. And it often creates a physical feeling, goosebumps, or just a deep sense of knowing in your gut. Confirmation bias, on the other hand, just feels good because it tells you what you already want to hear. So to help cut through that noise, here's a super practical tool you can use, the 3-question filter. Anytime a synchronicity happens, just run it through these 3 questions. 1, does it resonate in my body? Do I get chills? 2, was I in a neutral headspace or was I desperately trying to force an answer? And 3, is this pushing me to grow or is it just patting my ego on the back? This little filter can bring so much clarity. Now we get to section 4, and okay, this is a real game changer. This is where everything starts to get really interesting. Once you can notice the signs and you have a way to interpret them, the next level is to respond. This is where you stop being a passive listener on the sidelines and you actually join the conversation. And responding isn't an all or nothing thing. It's like leveling up in a game. You can start small, at level 1, with just a simple mental nod. A thank you, I see that. Then you can level up to investigating, Googling that symbol you keep seeing. Then you take a small action, like actually buying the book that keeps popping up. And as you build that trust, you start making bigger choices based on this guidance until you reach the final level, a true co-creative partnership. And this is the huge realization that hits you after you've been doing this for a while. Your entire perspective just flips. It dawns on you that your consciousness isn't just a radio receiver picking up signals from some faraway station. You're part of the system. You're influencing the broadcast. You're not just reading the story of your life, you're helping to write it. Which brings us to the final boss level, if you will, co-creation. This is when you stop just waiting for signs to appear and you start intentionally asking for them. It's where you put a clear intention out there and then you just watch with curiosity as the world starts to rearrange itself to meet you halfway. You are now in a collaborative dance. And there's even a protocol for this. First, you set a very specific, neutral intention. Then you decide on the sign. You tell reality, okay, if I meant to take this job, show me 3 yellow butterflies today. But then, and this is the secret sauce, the part everyone struggles with, you have to completely let it go. You release all attachment to the outcome. Then you just watch without forcing it. And if the sign appears, you take action. So that brings us to our final section. We've covered all the pieces of the puzzle: noticing, interpreting, responding, co-creating. The big question is, how do we actually put all of this together and turn it into a consistent daily practice? How do you actually get fluent in this new language? And look, this can feel like a lot, which is why this 90-day plan is perfect. It breaks it all down into manageable chunks. For the entire first month, your only job is to notice. That's it. Just collect the data. In month 2, you keep doing that, but you start running things through that 3-question filter. And then, by month 3, you can start to dip your toes into responding with small actions and maybe experimenting with 1 or 2 intentions a week. So what's the payoff for all this work? Well, it's kind of everything. After 90 days of this, the world itself just starts to feel different. It feels more alive, more responsive, more intelligent. Your own intuition gets so much sharper. You feel less isolated, and these synchronicities often start to light up the path toward what you're really here to do. It's a huge shift in how you experience your own life. See, the amazing thing is, you're not trying to create a conversation out of thin air. You're just finally picking up the phone to a call that's been ringing for you your whole life. So really, the only question left is the one right here. The line is open. What do you want to talk about?